Okay, this is for the shredders. Another guitar lesson out there for the guys who want to play quicker. So I hope that we have some good people in here that are ready to learn and work a little bit. I'm definitely stoked you're in. I'm stoked to teach for sure. So let's do it. So I'm gonna play this guitar. Let me put on my. You guys didn't hear a word that I just said. I was just talking to myself, by the way. But I was just getting my stuff together, saying how cool it was that I get to be with you guys today and doing these lessons. Man, they're super fun for me, and there's no greater way to learn than to actual teach. And that's what I've learned in life. That as you teach, you learn yourself. You know, you're growing yourself. So what I always put underneath my foot, just so you guys see, I've shown you before, but I always put a little stool, just to give my foot a little rest, um, so I can prop up my thing like that. So this lesson is super cool. We're going to work more on modal music and work more on scales, and we're going to continue to work on our right hand a little bit in this guitar lesson. So we're going to work on is something that's a little. We've worked on this before, this pattern, and what we want to do is develop it. However it goes, but you kind of get the idea of what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to we're going to build those bursts. Now this is kind of it's not an easy thing to do. Right hand's never easy work, by the way. I mean, we get so used to our left hand work that when we get into the right hand, it becomes really difficult, really hard. And but it takes a lot of just. So, but we've done this pattern before. So I'm just coming down. So just work on that. And this is like as in if you were playing with a pick, of course. So the reason why this is going to be cool, because today when we work on our modal music, I want you to see that we have these patterns down in this part of the neck, that what we're going to be able to do is take these patterns. And you're going to work on this in a way that it's going to tire out your hand, first of all, and then you're going to be able to develop some strength, getting some more strength. Now, when you're doing your modes like we worked on last week, you want to be able to develop certain patterns within those modes that make it really cool to be able to solo. So, and that's really what this is about. Is when you're soloing, it's super fun. It's super awesome to solo. Um, and we have to kind of develop patterns within these scales. So we're going to work on Phrygian today, and you guys should be working on different patterns with Ionian. And you can work on that with Dorian. And and we had different patterns that we were working on too, right? And these all seem boring. But again, what we're doing is we're just working on technique, just getting things together, our brain working on these patterns that's so important for us, right? So I hope you guys are getting that. Are you guys getting it? Yeah? Is everybody getting that thing? Cool. I hope so. Hope you guys are getting it because we're gonna roll into it right now. So now when we go into Phrygian, um, I was teaching you guys that the modes, what distinguishes different modes is where you start from. So sorry about that. But so if you start on the first, if you make the root the first, it can, what changes it is kind of where you start. So if everything's being based off of this first scale, this Ionian mode, then if we started on the second, we get this Dorian. If we start on the third, we get Phrygian. And that's where we're going to land today a little bit, is this Phrygian. So Phrygian's just, it's up here. If we're in G major, it's going to be there. So we're going to start on this B. And you see it's just a 1, 2, 4, 3 pattern. Or 1, 2, 4 pattern, sorry. And then you get to go to the next string, just like that. Next string. Next string. Next string. Next string. So you've seen a lot of people do that kind of feel. So it kind of sounds a little bit within this Phrygian framework. Very popular framework, by the way, in music. A lot of stuff is in this. Because it has a really minor sound to it. So because it's minor. And so Phrygian's way cool. It's really popular. And I want you to see how this works. So if you're in this G, and this is where we've kind of started in G major, just this Ionian pattern. If I ran this scale this way and then I went down Phrygian, it's going to sound just like I'm playing Ionian. See that? See, it sounds just like I'm in G. Because I am in G if I start in G. If I started this solo here and I went. If I ended there and I started there, though, even though it's a Dorian shape from here, it's really just the standard Ionian scale. But if I started the scale on this B, then I'm no longer in G. So anyway, that's a little bit of what we learned in our early lessons. Right? So just that little strings pattern of doing octaves. But so Phrygian is just. Now, you can get online and you can look at Phrygian and it'll show you ways to play Phrygian. It might show you a different one. It might show you, let's see, I was looking at this today. little different. They're making what they're doing online, so you can see a little difference of what they're doing and what I'm doing. Is they're making sure that there's 3 notes, it looks like, per string. So they're shaping the pattern of the scale so that it fits that 3 patterned per string format. But the scale in general is just what I showed you. So, and remember, with all these patterns, the trick is to weave in and out of them when you're playing a solo. So that is the trick of the trade. So what we were working on last week was just taking the Ionian and then rolling into Dorian. Going back to Ionian. Go back into Dorian. So you can see what we're doing is we're just working in and out of the 2, right? We just keep ending up on this G. Just because we're making believe that our song is in G major. So that's why we're doing this, right? If it's not in G major, it's another story, and we can. But all these modes still work. Don't get me wrong; they're still going to work with whatever you're doing. Mostly whatever you're doing. So, but that's what we're doing. We're staying in this G major kind of pattern, right? So, and that's how we're getting to this third of G, and now we're playing this pattern here, very Phrygian pattern, right? And now what I want you to see is that this up on the high notes, the pattern is. And what was the high note on the Dorian? What was the high note on the Ionian? I'll put this one in. It's there, but I'm going to play it there. So check this out. So all I'm doing is just playing it, just running through that lower part, but you can see where you can start developing something. Isn't that cool? So now you're playing one of the patterns that you've been working on with the scales with me. We've been working on the patterns. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now go back. Now go into the Dorian. Now go into the Phrygian. Isn't that cool? So now it sounds cool. It sounds like. So, and you can come back that way. It's kind of cool. So your patterns can change. You can do 1, 2, 3. That's 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Threes. So you can practice threes. You can practice twos. But you hear how cool that is? Like if you're playing a scale. So it's neat how now your solos, you're not just playing the scale. So you can see how that kind of works, right? Where now you're starting to have this like little motive off of these areas. So the motive is just a short little riff, like a motif. Like when I was in classical school, there was a lot of Bach that had these little motifs in it. I was trying to think of an example, but um, um, uh, so maybe like a little riff, if you will. It's just this little kind of thing that keeps coming in, to the song. And in guitar, there's so many different riffs that you want to kind of play, and but they're all working within the framework of these modes. Okay. And that's what they're doing, is they're all working in the framework. So if you can get some of these patterns down that we've worked on in prior lessons with your right hand, and just working with these patterns of 6 that I had you guys working with, then when you start getting into these modes, your mind should start expanding and you start going, whoa, I can see now where I can really move this in different ways. Where instead of just playing straight, I'm now. So now you start seeing the scale starting to move in all the way from here all the way into here, right? Isn't that cool? Whoa, you probably thought, whoa, that's going to be hard, to learn all these crazy octave scales. Well, no, it's not going to be crazy. It's just you got to kind of know the framework that we're working with. So you think of a mode in G, the first Ionian of a G major, right? And you go, man, that's going to be, where do I go from here? I don't want to just play this scale over and over. Well, don't move into Dorian. Again, as long as you end up on that G, you're going to be fine. As long as you end up on that G, you're going to be fine. So that's what you want to kind of get from doing these modes. So now we just got done the Phrygian mode. So now we'll move into the 4th mode, right? Lydian. And so you got Phrygian, Lydian, Ionian, Dorian. So in order, I just mixed up the order for you, but if we took it, we're in G major, we do Ionian mode, we're going to do a Dorian mode, we're going to do the Phrygian mode, and then we're going to do the Lydian mode. And I like Lydian a lot. I think Lydian's a way cool kind of sound to it. It's kind of funny. Like when I've written some of my songs, I've kind of rolled, kind of done some, kind of moved within the modes. 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So it's kind of neat how that works, where I kind of just go, which is a mode I'll get to in a little bit. A different one that's going to be a Aeolian mode, but for us, we're working on the Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, and now we're going to go to Lydian. So this might be radical for you guys too, but again, what we're going to try to do is develop this. Isn't that cool? So now we're developing something really cool, and we've all heard rippers just like. So you kind of get the feel of how that sounds, right? It's really cool. It's kind of building, but it's kind of got that cool sound to it all. And that's really fun. And so when we get into the Lydian mode, remember I told you it's just where we start. So check this out. We're going to go. There's the G major scale right there. But we're going to keep it. We're going to repeat it now. Okay, so Lydian starts on the fourth note of the G major. That's what we're in G major. So if we were in A major, A, B, C, D. So it would be the D. Yeah. So it's just the fourth of the major. So that's what we're doing, and that's the Lydian scale. So it's kind of cool because if you're in G, now you come down this Lydian pattern. And I kind of like this. I think Lydian's cool. I kind of like this. So you can see how you can just take this bottom cool, huh? Finish it off. So you can see how this works. Very cool, right? Very cool. Now, a lot of people hammer on these kind of things. Where they don't pick every note, but you can just work on your picking. Work on threes. So Lydian is just, all we're doing is just 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to start. Shift up 1. So very cool, right? So that is kind of now another place you can play the scale. So if you're in the key of G, and this is what's hopefully sticking with you guys a little bit. If you're in the key of G, you don't have to stay in this little section right here. You got this section, this section, this section. You're going to have another section in here. And then you're going to be back to the beginning. So how many notes are in the major minor scale traditionally? Just basically, you got 7. How many modes do we got? 7. Okay. So it's all making sense, hopefully, right? Wow. With each note in the scale, if you start a scale on that specific note, that different note, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, now it has a different set of sharps and flats. When you start on that specific note. So if you start on 2, it's going to look a little different than when you start on 1. And if you start on 3, it's going to look a little different than when you start on 1. So I'm hoping I'm making some sense out of this thing for you guys, because it's cool when you're in like G major and you're seeing this scale. Again, if you want to make up chords, this is the cool part. Is just make sure they're in the key. That's it. You know, Oh, that's cool. So, but you get my pictures. I'm just looking at the scale, the Ionian scale, and I'm going, hey, what's in the key? Oh, that's cool. That's in the key. That is. Whoa! What about that? I just came up with something cool. Whoa. Now check this out. I'm not even teaching anything. You guys might already know these chord patterns, these chords looks, but I'm just letting you guys know that when you look at the scale itself and you make up a chord based off of the notes in the scale, it's going to start making sense in your brain, meaning you're going to hear it and you're going to go, oh man, that sounds cool. So you're going to put something together. That sounds nice. That wasn't, I hit a wrong note in the scale. So what I'm doing is I'm just looking at the pattern. That's all I'm doing. Looking at the notes in the scale, and I'm putting together. I'm just going to do something here. What does it sound like? So that's kind of what you can do. You can go up here, or the Dorian pattern. Start messing around. What's the Dorian pattern look like? Not weird. I'm just messing around with the scale. Now, the reason why I'm having you guys do this is it's kind of tedious, but it's so that you can see that that chords, when you do learn chords and you learn what, you're going to see that, oh, I'm working within a scale pattern. That's what I'm doing. Is I'm all this stuff that we're doing with chords, it's all within the framework of the modes. It's all working within the framework of the scale. So like all we're doing is looking at, I mean, these chords are built off of the scale. So everything is relative. It's all working together as one. It's all unoed, right? So we're all just working together. It's all fitting within this beautiful framework of modal music, what we call modal music. So it's really cool. So when you learn the modes, remember, it's always going to work in soloing if you end up on the same note. So if I'm in this G major and I'm soloing, and I'm in these different patterns, these scale patterns of Dorian, Phrygian, then I'm in Lydian. I go up to mixed Lillian. How that works, it is all I'm making sure that the G is the one that's being emphasized. So hopefully you're starting to your eyes are starting to go, wow, that's cool. Now you got to work to shred. You got to be able to again build your speed up. So remember your speed burst on these little parts. So just as we took these little parts, those little parts, isn't that cool? So just as we took those little parts of the scale, you can do that on any section, any two sections of the scale. So you can if you're in this Ionian, move it up to the Dorian. Now we're in the Phrygian. Now we're in the Lydian. So you can see how we're just practicing this little section of jumping in between the modes just with the middle parts. And you can do that with the top parts if you want. So you can see how that works, right? It's kind of crazy, but all you're doing is you're just working on these top parts of the modes, on the middle parts of the modes, just getting in between them, just working. So you have to see them though as one little unit here, one little unit there, one little unit there. And then as you do that, then you'll be able to really develop your ins and outs and your scales, through and through. So work on the bursting though. So if you can just work on your speed, just work on little sections so of the mode, and that's what I'm doing when I'm jumping from here to here to here to here to here real quick. Those kind. I'm just working on the speed. Um, you know. So just try to work on that. Try to work on your patterns. Yeah. Work on your different patterns that within those little motifs. And then when then as those motifs build on one another, then it starts sounding really cool and like something, right? So just like we've been working on. So, for your right hand, just work on that technique of so just try to work on that. Just try to work on that right hand, and it's going to be a left hand cruncher too. Because all we're doing is, remember, we're just moving through the modes. That's what we're moving through in these little parts. So let me show you how I'm going to do this with this right hand pattern that we just did, that we did at the beginning. And I'm going to run it now through the high parts of the modes. So check this out. So that's it. So isn't that cool? So this was the lower part of that one. That was the combination of these two. That one, the Dorian, the Phrygian, the Lydian. Isn't that cool? So all we're doing is just doing this pattern on one string. Isn't this cool? So you can work on. All right. So you can see that it is a burly workout. It's not for sissies at all, but you just start working on these things and your muscles will develop more and more and more. One last thing too that I want to share with you that'll kind of increase your brain too is when you're doing these little patterns. Remember that you can always jump to the octave in your soloing. So you can always jump to the octave. Isn't that cool? So you can always jump to the octave. And the reason why I'm telling you that is just so when you're soloing, if you jump to the octaves, you know that at least you're going to be okay. It'll sound okay. It won't be a weird thing. And sometimes going to the octaves, it can be a good transition. So that's another, just when you think about that, when you're playing these little motives, it's okay to jump to those octaves. Just look at where you're at though. Look at the neck and try to see if you could see the modes. Like if you're in G major, this is what the modes look like. This is how it's going to look. This is how that's going to look. This is where that's going to look. That one. So that you're seeing the patterns. So hopefully that helps you guys for sure and get you guys moving a little bit with some of the guitar stuff. So anyway, hope that helps. I hope you guys enjoyed number 7 of shredding. So we're expanding our modes. We're expanding our minds a little bit and how to get in and out of the modes. And we can start working on arpeggios next within those modes. We did that a little bit of the first time working with the modes last study, but we'll do that again next week, and we'll see how we can just keep developing on our arpeggios, working on adding new notes in that scale to the arpeggio and make it sound a little different. So you guys take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.